The death of a homeless man on a New York subway a few days ago has caused protests by BLM and other leftist agitators. Jordan Neely was placed in a chokehold by a US Marine veteran after he got on the train and started abusing and threatening passengers. And already there's been protests demanding that Daniel Penny, the 24-year-old Marine veteran, be charged with murder. BLM and number of race-baiting politicians have jumped on this issue with gusto because the Marine veteran is white and Neely was black. Here we see some mainly non-black BLM protesters stopping black workers from using the subway.
Get out of her face! Get out of her face! You can get out of the train or something! Get out of her face! Get out of her face!
So get another train! Take another train!
And here we see a black police officer being berated by protesters, even though the police had absolutely nothing to do with this death. Ami, Jordan Neely's death should have never happened. He should have been probably locked up. He had been arrested 42 times, including for punching a 67-year-old woman in the face. But this case has sparked protests and all sorts of calls from politicians.
Yeah, what this really is, it is a tragedy. It's a failure of left-wing urban policy. It's a failure of our mental health policies. It really is a shame and a tragedy that it came to that. But I think that we have to understand a number of things. First of all, yeah, you mentioned the fact that he was arrested 42 times. You mentioned the fact that he punched a 67-year-old woman. None of that stuff isn't really how they're portraying the narrative, right? The narrative that CNN and the rest of them are portraying is one of a man who was a Michael Jackson impersonator who was distraught on the death of his mother. All true, by the way. But leaving out the time and time again that he was hurting people, threatening people, the time he spent in and out of jail and arrest, they leave that because it goes against their narrative. By the way, the same reason, you know, the left-wing protesters, they don't care about black people like you saw in that video. They care about their narrative. Narrative uber alles. And one has to understand, if you're not living in New York City, what it's like now and what it was like just 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you were never accosted on the subway. The subways were clean. Today, I mean, saying it's a hellscape is probably overstating it, but it is very uncomfortable to ride the subway. It is dirty. People are smoking. People are accosting you, begging for money. I have been threatened a number of times in the subway. I've seen it over and over again. And to have somebody, and look, you're just not happy using it. And who does that affect the most, Rita? It affects people in the lower classes because they have no choice but to take the subway. Those are the lives you are ruining by allowing the Jordan Neelys to accost and take over the subway platform and trains because you're making it difficult for people to get to work. That is a significant problem.
Absolutely. Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Always a pleasure, Rita.